Right now, as you watch this, a new Cold War is already over, and the West lost. This isn't happening in the deserts of the Middle East or the fields of Ukraine, it's happening in the frozen, melting Arctic. And while the US and NATO were sleeping, Russia has been executing a decades-long master plan to dominate the top of the world. I'm going to show you the 3 undeniable pillars of how Russia is beating the US and NATO. This isn't speculation. This is about military bases, icebreakers, and trillions of dollars in resources that are already under Russian control. Let's start with the hard military facts. First, the icebreaker gap. To project power in the Arctic, you need to get there. Russia has over 40 icebreakers. 6 of them are nuclear-powered. The United States has 2. Let me repeat that. Russia has more nuclear icebreakers than the rest of the world combined. Second, the bases. Russia has built and modernized over 20 major military facilities across its Arctic coast. These aren't small outposts. They're full-scale bases like the Arctic Shamrocks, self-contained military complexes with airfields, anti-air systems, and the ability to house thousands of troops permanently. Third, the weapons. Russia has deployed its Bastion anti-ship missiles along the entire northern sea route. They've positioned S-400 air defense systems that can cover vast swathes of Arctic airspace. They are militarizing the ice, and NATO has almost no permanent presence to counter it. This brings us to the second pillar, geopolitical chess. Understand this. Russia's strategy in the Arctic isn't just about military might. It's a sophisticated, multi-decade game of legal and diplomatic warfare. Since 2001, Moscow has been engaged in a relentless paper war at the United Nations, systematically submitting geological data to the Commission on the Limits of the Continental Shelf. Their goal? To legally prove that vast swathes of the Arctic seabed, an area larger than South Africa, are a natural extension of the Siberian continental shelf. This isn't a land grab, it's a science-backed, lawyer-driven territorial expansion conducted under the auspices of international law. And while their diplomats work the rooms in New York, their strategists executed a masterstroke, the seizure of the northern sea route. As the ice recedes, this shipping lane isn't just a curiosity, it's the Suez Canal of the 21st century. It cuts the journey from Shanghai to Rotterdam by 40%, saving billions in fuel and transit time. And Russia didn't ask for a share, they declared it their internal waters. Let that sink in. Any commercial vessel, Chinese, German, Korean, that wants to use this multi-trillion-dollar trade shortcut must now seek permission from the Russian government. They are required to hire Russian icebreaker escorts at Moscow's price. They must accept Russian pilots on their bridges. Russia no longer just guards a border. They control the toll booth on the world's next great trade artery. And the greatest strategic blow to the West, the United States Senate has repeatedly refused to ratify the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. So while Russia uses the law as a weapon, the US isn't even in the courtroom. We are fighting a legal war, unarmed on the sidelines. Which brings us to the ultimate prize, the reason for all this chess playing, the resource race. The melting Arctic ice is not an environmental tragedy to Russia, it is the grand unveiling of the planet's last great treasure chest. The numbers are almost too large to comprehend. We are looking at an estimated 30% of the world's undiscovered natural gas, 13% of its undiscovered oil, over $1 trillion worth of rare earth minerals, the very elements that power our phones, our electric vehicles, and our modern weapon systems. And Russia isn't waiting for permission or for the ice to fully melt. They are cashing in now. Look at the Yamal LNG project, a massive liquefied natural gas facility built literally on the permafrost, shipping energy to Europe and Asia year-round, even through the polar night. They are building floating nuclear power plants to fuel remote Arctic towns and mines. They are not just preparing for the future, they are actively building their economy on it today. And the most brutal irony of all? The climate change, accelerated by our global dependence on fossil fuels, is melting the ice that now allows Russia to access even more fossil fuels. They are profiting from the very crisis they helped to perpetuate. It's a vicious, self-reinforcing cycle of power and profit. But to think of this as just a Russian victory is to miss the larger, more dangerous picture. Enter the silent, strategic partner in this resource race, the People's Republic of China. While Russia owns the territory, China owns the leverage. Beijing has a voracious appetite for the very resources now being unlocked. and they have strategically positioned themselves as the indispensable banker for Russia's Arctic ambitions. Look at the numbers. Chinese state-owned corporations like the China National Petroleum Corporation, CNPC, and the Silk Road Fund are major financial backers of Russia's flagship Yamal LNG and Arctic LNG-2 projects. In exchange for their billions, they secure long-term contracts for liquefied natural gas, locking down the energy supplies they desperately need to power their economy for decades to come. Russia digs, but China buys. But here is the masterstroke of Chinese strategy. They are not just a passive customer. In 2018, Beijing officially declared itself a near-Arctic state, a term of their own invention with no basis in international law, to justify their permanent interest and involvement in the region. They are building their own fleet of icebreakers, including the powerful Sulong 2, Snow Dragon 2. They have established the Yellow River Research Station in Norway's Svalbard archipelago. They are conducting scientific missions not just out of curiosity, but to gather critical data on Arctic sea routes and resource maps. So, while Russia provides the muscle and the territory on the front lines, China is providing the capital and executing a long-term, patient strategy to become a permanent Arctic power in their own right. The West is no longer just facing a resurgent Russia, it is facing a coordinated, resource-hungry axis that has already divided the spoils. So how did the West, with all its resources and intelligence, allow this to happen? The answer is a cascade of strategic failures. First, myopia, strategic short-sightedness. For 2 decades, NATO was consumed by the war on terror, then the pivot to Asia, then the war in Ukraine. All the while, Russia maintained a relentless, unwavering focus on the Arctic. They played the long game while we lurched from one crisis to the next. Second, division. There is no unified NATO Arctic command. There is no common strategy. Norway looks north with concern and builds a few frigates. Canada talks a big game but struggles to fund its own icebreaker fleet. The United States is only now waking up to the reality. Meanwhile, Russia speaks with one voice, executes one plan. Third, and most critically, we underestimated them. We dismissed their Arctic buildup as a costly vanity project, a Potemkin village in the snow. We failed to see that for the Kremlin, the Arctic isn't a side project. It is the cornerstone of their vision for a 21st century energy superpower. They were playing for the highest stakes, and we didn't even believe the game had started. So here is the uncomfortable, undeniable truth. The first major geopolitical contest of the 21st century is over. Russia achieved military dominance, established legal control, and began extracting the resources. They won not with a spectacular battle, but with glacial, inexorable persistence. This isn't just a video about the Arctic. It's a case study in how wars are won in the modern era without a single shot being fired. If this reality concerns you, if you believe this story needs to be heard, then I need you to act. Smash that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel and hit the bell. The next video is already in the works, breaking down whether NATO has any chance of catching up. And most importantly, comment below. What is the #1 priority? More icebreakers? A new treaty? A unified NATO command? I read every single one. The war for the Arctic is over, and the world was looking the other way. Don't look away now.